Hello and welcome to the Total Soccer Show. I am Daryl Grove and I'm joined by a man who woke up early on Saturday and kind of regretted it. It's Taylor Rockwell. Hello.
Hello. No, I didn't regret it. It was a good morning.
It was?
Yeah. I mean,
right.
I think, speaking as a Manchester United fan, which I am, and you're referencing the Manchester Derby, which did not go the way of Manchester United, I think a lot of people, myself included, last season were sort of, like, honestly, we're saying, I will take a thrilling loss over a 0-0 draw. And so, at the very least, this game was very captivating for any number of reasons. Although it did not go the way I would have liked the scoreline to have gone. I'll admit that much.
So I did not get up early.
Yeah.
I did not watch live. I knew the score when I watched on the DVR. But wow, this was quite the game. Like, in hindsight, I think I wish I'd set my alarm. Because this was thrilling.
Except, see, I go the other way, which is that we basically rewatched the entire game in studio. And again, when you don't have the pressure of watching it live and the emotion that goes along with that, you start to see a lot more stuff that makes you understand all the more why the game went the way it did.
Yeah. I mean, isn't that part of what we've learned with the Total Soccer Show, right? There's two ways of watching a game. There's the first time where it's basically all emotion, and even when you're not vested in it, but especially when it's like the US national team or something, it's all emotional the first time. And then the second watch through is figuring out why all those things happened. And I sort of equally enjoy both versions of watching soccer.
Yeah, I enjoy it. I definitely enjoy the second one more than I ever did. Because I used to always never want to know the score. I felt like it ruined the game. And now I almost prefer it at times because it allows you to relax a little bit. But I do like the double dose because then you can sort of watch it again without the emotion and see if your opinions, your theories on the game were correct or incorrect.
Once with the heart and once with the head.
There it is.
Yeah. All right, so there's lots of things to think about with this game in terms of what we thought went right and wrong. Let's start with Jose Mourinho because he certainly thought some things went wrong. Was he just massively outcoached by Pep Guardiola? Did his players let him down, which is essentially what he suggested in his post-match comments?
I think yes to the second one, but mostly because of yes to the first question. I think he thought Guardiola was going to do a specific thing. I think we both thought the same.
Yeah.
But we are not in charge of Manchester United, so we did not line up Manchester United to deal with that thing.
And so are you saying that thing because we're going to get into it in a bit? Yeah.
Yes. So I think Guardiola banked on Jose Mourinho adjusting his tactics to play against a certain type of Manchester City, and then he set his team up to be a very different type of Manchester City.
So he was one step ahead the whole time.
Yep.
And it does seem to me the two players, I feel like we're talking in mysteries here, we'll name all these things in a minute. The two players that he put into the lineup to do the thing that Mourinho wanted to do are also the two guys he took out at half-time and sort of blame them for their performance. Yeah. I think there's a thing where he put them in that position. He put them in a position to fail, basically, and then blamed them for failing.
SAT teachers are losing their mind on the amount of vague pronouns we're using right now.
Should we get to it then?
Sure.
All right, so the players we're talking about are Mkhitaryan, who started on the right for Manchester United, and Jesse Lingard, who apparently played on the left for Manchester United. I mostly saw the ball just roll under his foot.
Yeah, not his strongest performance.
So why, after watching this twice, why do we think they were selected ahead of Juan Mata and Anthony Martial, who had started every game so far and done well for Mourinho? And how did Guardiola sort of think his way around that?
Well, I think Mourinho more or less set out to do exactly what we thought he wanted to do. That United definitely sat back. They weren't applying very much pressure, at least when City had the ball in their own half, basically. So United were trying to sit back, and then I think what the goal was to bank on Manchester City sending their fullbacks into middle of the field.
Yeah, like Alaba Lam style, right?
And so, and they've done that a few times this season, so
Every
it made
game
sense,
so
right?
Yeah.
So then I think the goal was to kind of crowd them out in the middle and then get the ball out wide where you now have pace, because Juan Mata isn't the paciest of players. He's a very good player, but he's not.
Legs.
Yeah. And so the idea was to then have these two players who are pacey out wide. So then once you retain or regain possession, you play it wide, you get down the channel, and you're very quickly into the opposition end of the field.
But instead, what I saw was Mkhitaryan especially looking lost.
Yep.
Look, I mean, he's a magnificent footballer, right? But he looked like he'd barely played ever. A lot of sort of looking all around him, and not in a way that's like he's in control of everything, looking all around him in a way of like, I don't know what I'm doing, I'm trying to find the spot where I'm supposed to be, I don't know where it is, I think it might be here, oh no it's not, the ball's gone past me, maybe it's over there.
If this is one of those times when I wish we had like the NBC Sports tracker thing that they have where it shows you the run they made, because you would just, or maybe that's Match of the Day, I forget, or Monday Night Football.
I think they all have that now.
Yeah, but it's like you would just see so many like aimless like figure eights and loop de loops, and because he really was
doing donuts.
lost. And I think a big part of that was because he kept expecting players to come into the middle.
Yep.
So he would go very like narrow inside. So too with Jesse Lingard, and then the guys that they expected to come with them stayed wide.
Yep.
And so all the time you'd see Mkhitaryan, for example, drift inside. And then turn and be like, oh, there's two guys out wide that I'm supposed to be shutting down. And so basically every time City got the ball, they had, 5-10 yards of space, every single player. And so it really allowed them to do what they wanted and allowed United to chase and look confused.
So we'll talk about the goals in a second, but there's definitely a moment in the first 5 minutes or so where Otamendi is allowed to just dribble the ball out of the back and play that through ball to Kevin De Bruyne, who flashes it low across the box. It really could have been a goal early on. And it's all because Mkhitaryan's at the halfway line, Rooney and Lingard are all there, and they don't know who to step to or who to mark. And so Otamendi's like, okay, no one's coming for me. I'm just going to slowly drift forward, and there's a massive passing lane there. I'm going to find Kevin De Bruyne's feet.
I mean, he runs past 4 players without really having to run past them. Yeah. And so I think all of that made United very uncertain about how to play. And so I think at least for those first 30 minutes, it really could have been 3 or 4-0.
So can we talk about the goal?
Let's do it.
All right. So it all comes from Kevin De Bruyne, really. But it starts with a long ball from Kolarov. It's an Iheanacho flick on, and then De Bruyne runs basically in front of Daley Blind, gets there first. Suddenly he's one-on-one with De Gea, slots it in the corner. He fakes to go far post, instead rolls it near post.
Yes.
But there's quite a few little things going on here, right?
Starting with the fact that you say it starts with Kolarov with that long ball, but it actually starts with Kolarov playing that 1-2 you noticed with Bravo, with Claudio Bravo. And for the few mistakes he did make in this game,
Which we'll get to.
Yeah, which a lot of people were quick to jump on because of the situation with Joe Hart. Those mistakes were definitely evident, but they weren't anything related to why they got rid of Joe Hart. And the reason why they got rid of Joe Hart is because he wasn't very confident playing the ball, turning under pressure, finding the open pass. Claudio Bravo did a very good job of that most of the time in this game.
Well, he was maybe overconfident doing it a couple of times, but the upside is you get essentially an extra outfield player.
Yeah,
right.
Because I think there was one, and you said it as we were watching it, that you're like, Joe Hart just clears that ball, and Claudio Bravo fakes and turns and then plays it the other way, and then City attack down the left flank, and it's just sort of that vision that he has that allows them to have that other passing option. So
was that in the build up to the second goal?
It might have been, yeah. So and then this one, it's a 1-2 with Kolarov, and I think United players then kind of drift forward a little bit and are uncertain about where the ball is going to go, so they're not in the best position, and then Kolarov thumps it long.
So Mkhitaryan sort of steps to Kolarov, but sort of doesn't.
Oh,
and I think this
is
is part of the problem with what Manchester United were doing. They didn't want to press properly,
right,
but they also couldn't fall back properly because then guys just dribble at them.
Yep.
So he does that sort of very lame, lift his leg and turn his back and maybe block what Kolarov's doing, but not actually.
And it feels a little bit like he thinks he's done what he was supposed to do. Yeah. It's like, I forced him into going long.
Yeah.
It's like, except that by forced you mean he found an open player and played it perfectly to him because you put so little pressure on him.
I will say this game is the first time I appreciated Kolarov's accuracy and distance that he can put on a ball. There were so many basically long balls, but also big diagonal balls and switches of play that just seemed to leave his foot as if they were then targeted to land in a very specific spot on the other side of the field.
Yeah. And I mean,
I feel like he's one of those guys that you could put a trash can on the other side of the field and he could just drop it straight in there.
Yeah, that checks out. It seems like he had that ability, at least given this play. And I talked about in the preview that Manchester United had the height advantage. They had multiple players who were over 6 foot or over 6'4". City only had 2 players over 6 foot tall. And so to have, maybe I guess with Iheanacho it might have been 3, but to have that one player come in and win a header, flick it on, and that leads to a goal, it speaks to the fact that wasn't the type of clearance that United wanted City to be putting in, basically.
Yeah. Because it's not a hurry clearance, right? He's definitely got time to see Iheanacho and land it on top of him. Why does Eric Bailly not challenge Iheanacho for that ball? Because it's a free flick on.
Number one is, I think, because he's trying to get to him, because I don't think he expects that long ball when it's hit. I think then he's trying to close that gap down. And then I think you read this as maybe he thinks that Iheanacho is going to settle it and then drop it back.
Right.
And so he kind of holds off so he doesn't just plow through him as Bailly is maybe want to do.
Right, yeah, because if you plow through and Iheanacho just chests the ball and then drops it off and runs behind you, or chests it and spins, you've just overrun it and then he's in on goal. So I sort of get what Bailly's thinking.
Yeah, or you smash into the back of him, knock him over and get a yellow card.
Which he did earlier.
Yeah.
But it also made me think, again, this is maybe Manchester City outthinking Manchester United by deliberately playing against type.
Yep.
Right? You don't think of this as Guardiola ball at all. A long ball and a flick on from your centre forward. That's so basic and classic that maybe Bayern's thinking, well, there's no way he just flicks it on like an old school player, right?
No, there must be some other Guardiola-ness to it. Even if he does flick it on, he's going to flick it on in such a way that it actually sends it backwards, so then we can possess the ball and move it around. And instead, it's a beautiful flick on, perfectly into the path of Daley Blind.
It is.
Maybe. I guess perfectly in the path of Kevin De Bruyne, but Daley Blind didn't realize that.
So what I think is happening here, I think Kevin De Bruyne is on Daley Blind's blind side, meaning he literally the thing with there's a spot in truckers' rearview mirrors that they can't see you, and if you're really sneaky and you wanted to get in an accident, you could just stay in that spot. I think Kevin De Bruyne does this because he runs outside of Daley Blind's field of vision. Then as the ball bounces, he cuts across.
This is a very
that's
good.
How he gets there.
This
first.
is a very good analogy, except that what that actually says is, if you can't see me, or if you can't see me, I can't see you.
Yeah,
because it's supposed to mean that you should be able to see the trucker's mirrors. And in this case, it was more like, if you can't see me, I can definitely see you, and I'm going to take advantage of that. Is more so what Kevin De Bruyne's truck had written on its side.
So no. In this case, I think Daley Blind is the trick.
Okay.
That's maybe kind of it's got some low grade fuel in it. And it's rumbling along on the I was going to say I-95 because it's the interstate that I know around here. Kevin De Bruyne is on a really fast, nippy Belgian motorbike. So you can just nip in behind and surprise him.
And I think I still am mad at Daley Blind for this play, because basically then he tries to square up to the ball, I think basically to either do that kind of big swing through and clear it, or to try to settle it. But he's running backwards, and then he has to change direction, and then he has to square up. And I think because he doesn't know Kevin De Bruyne is there, but also because he's failed to anticipate that flick is coming, he just kind of doesn't know what to do, and so he's a little bit slow to react. Kevin De Bruyne could be accused of many things throughout his career, being slow to react, not one of them.
Ever.
And in this situation, he's definitely not. Has that lovely little poke through, and then a classy finish.
It shaves the inside of the near post. That's how perfectly placed it was.
But it's also that he kind of squares up, stares down De Gea, definitely fools De Gea into thinking he's going far post, and then just calmly slots it near post.
Doesn't even give De Gea the chance to do his weird hand between the legs block deal.
And then it does the careen off the inside of the post into the back of the net, but then because it's got such weird spin on it, it spins up into the net, and it's just got that very soothing looking pattern to it as it goes into the back of the net.
I kind of blow your mind in terms of Kevin De Bruyne's input to this goal.
Sure.
He also starts the move.
That's right.
Right? It's Wayne Rooney thinks he has time in midfield. It's like a Manchester United break. I think it might be in Valencia. He gets to Mkhitaryan and goes down the right, squares it to Rooney. Rooney's looking up. He's about to pick out one of those wonderful Wayne Rooney passes. Kevin De Bruyne, again, comes from his blind side, steps across and blocks Rooney's pass. Yeah. That's how the ball ends up back with Kolarov, 1-2 with Bravo, then we're back the other way. So De Bruyne is in the defensive midfield position, and then he's in essentially the centre-forward position, running beyond Iheanacho to score. And he surprised two Manchester United players in the space of about 15 seconds.
You know where else he also is? In Daley Blind's head at this point, because if you fast forward to the second goal, I think Daley Blind, maybe, this is my own interpretation, or the way I've chosen to see the narrative, that first goal, a little slow to react, a little slow to step to it. Kevin De Bruyne beats him.
Yeah.
So the next time they go up against each other, I think Daley Blind is there's no chance he's getting by me. I am blocking this shot no matter what. And so he really dives in to try to block the Kevin De Bruyne shot. That does not come. And he bites on that fake really hard. And I think you spotted, because he bites so hard, he drifts offside.
Yes.
And that's why Iheanacho is onside when that ball rebounds.
So if you're having trouble picturing this goal, it's I think it's a weak Iheanacho touch first, right? And it's cleared sort of half to the side. De Bruyne gets it. So he's on the right-hand side of the box. He fakes to shoot. Everybody's terrified. Yep. Yeah, Blint bites on it. I think Luke Shaw bites on it as well. Instead, he does the oldest move in the book. It is the oldest dribbling move in the book, the cut. But you fake one thing, then you just cut back in the other direction. It's classic. Yeah, and you're right. It sends Blint so far deep with the fake that Iheanacho is kept onside by Daley Blind.
Yes.
And I want to say Kevin De Bruyne planned it all.
Yeah, I think so.
Because if you haven't seen the goal, De Bruyne's shot hits the post, bounces back to Iheanacho, who's in the 6-yard box and just taps it home. It's the weirdest feeling goal I've seen for a while.
It's the most muted celebration to a goal in a Manchester derby I think I've ever seen.
Right? Because everyone's
outside of Dennis Law scoring against Manchester United for Man City, outside of that, it's a pretty muted celebration.
Is it because everyone thinks he's offside?
Yeah, including Iheanacho.
He looks at the lines.
He scores and immediately turns yeah, I know. That flag's not up. And then there's kind of a half celebration, and then they all hug.
Right.
Yeah.
So, De Bruyne's skills are so tight that they keep people on side.
Yes. And I want to ask you this, because when I watched it live, I blamed Daley Blind pretty much 100% for both goals. And it led me to that feeling of like maybe it will be Chris Smalling when he comes back. Maybe this is the stuff that people have talked about, that if you have a natural center back, he knows to read that flick is coming in. He knows where to position himself. He knows not to bite. And if you do bite, he knows to step forward. Maybe Chris Smalling does those things. Maybe those goals don't happen.
Right.
So I'm curious if you think that's fair or if that's a bit harsh, given that he was sort of forced into reacting to two things.
I think it's a thing of being sort of the last line of defence. Then you ultimately end up looking like the one that's at fault.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I also, do you remember Who Scored tweeted out the some like impressive Daily Blind stats from the start of the season? It was like his passing success rate was 90%, his interceptions were like 7 for 7, his tackles were like 6 for 6.
Yeah.
So I honestly don't know. I've always had this feeling that maybe he's going to struggle against sort of the very, very top strikers. But I've also seen him do some very smart things, right?
Yeah.
So the reason this is impressive for me, the reason this is worrying for me in a Daily Blind thing is this is the first time he's been kind of outsmarted.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that makes sense because both times he was a little bit.
Yeah. Like you could see him maybe being outmuscled, but both times he was outthought.
But yeah, and then I would say to that, because now I think I'm kind of arguing with myself because I agree with you, but I would also say that this was definitely a first 30 minutes, first half that really not much went right for Manchester United because of the way they set out, because of the kind of deficiencies we've already talked about.
Yeah.
And so then it does become, if nothing else is working, then City just have complete confidence, all the ball, everyone is like feeling it. And so then when you're the last defender, it's kind of maybe not necessarily your fault if no one else is doing what they're supposed to do and somebody scores, even though you look like you might be the one at fault.
Right. I would agree with that because I think the bigger thing was the decision to stick with Paul Pogba and Marouane Fellaini as the two defensive midfielders. To me, that's the thing that didn't work.
Why?
I think neither of them, they didn't figure out what to do with Kevin De Bruyne, for one thing, right? I think Lee Dixon really did a good job of spotting this on NBC. The way De Bruyne would sort of drift between the two of them, and neither of them took full responsibility for him. They thought maybe they could pass him off. But then he'd also drift. So he drifts horizontally, I think, or laterally between Fellaini and Pogba. And then he also drifts up and down, like vertically, between both of them and the centre-backs. So then he's always like not quite anyone's man. You know what I mean? It's almost like he lets 4 people mark him so that none of them actually mark him. Everyone's marking him 25%.
There's even that one sequence, because I remember you pointed this out and saying, like, oh, no one's really marking him. But then as soon as you said that, Paul Pogba, like, drops back and is on him aggressively.
Yeah.
And we were both like, oh, no, he's smart. And then Paul Pogba just, like, drifted away again. And so it almost seemed like, yeah, they've maybe been tasked with it, but they both only remembered it. Like, maybe they had so many instructions from Mourinho that they kind of forgot that one, which is kind of important.
United do get a goal back. It's a foul on the right-hand side. I think it's that Valencia dribble, right? A great cross, I think, from Wayne Rooney. Just hangs it up and bends it at the far post where Pogba and Zlatan are waiting. That's 2 great aerial targets. Claudio Bravo comes out, gets in a mess.
I'd say more it's John Stones and Claudio Bravo are waiting, sort of, than anybody else.
Well, that's what happens, right? It doesn't quite reach those two, but Stones jumps up and Bravo jumps into him, and the ball pops loose, and Zlatan has that side volley. A lot of blame going to Claudio Bravo. I came into studio tonight saying, hey, I think this is John Stones' fault. Because John Stones challenges his own goalkeeper and makes things tough for everybody. But you disagree, and I think you persuaded me why, but I'd like you to explain it also to our listeners.
Sure, because essentially the ball comes in, they have their offside line, as you do when you have that free kick from distance, and then John Stones drops once the ball's in the air. And if he just runs straight back and clatters into Claudio Bravo, who's then trying to come out to collect the ball, that's more his fault. But in this situation, John Stones, I think, does a very good job of tracking that ball, so he does run back, but then he runs a little bit diagonally, and then he stops and is ready to face the ball and jumps just straight up in the air.
And when you say stop, it's not like he stops because he doesn't know what to do. He stops because he has found the spot he needs to jump from. Right? And he's put an X on the spot. Like this is the place. I'm going up. I'm getting that ball.
As proven by the fact that he jumps straight up. So it's not him sprinting back and then jumping and then there's a collision. It's he's going straight up to win that ball. Meanwhile, Claudio Bravo is coming off of his line with speed, but from the replays we saw, not really saying anything.
We were looking for mouth movement, right? Because if he's shouting Claudio's or whatever, however he refers to himself, I think it's more acceptable to then blame John Stones because if he's shouting, you keep a shout to the defender, you have to sort of let him have it, right? Get out of the way for him.
Maybe he said, like, you don't need to challenge for the ball because I am coming because I am the goalkeeper, but he said it in rapid-fire Spanish, and that didn't quite have the same effect. Regardless, they make that collision. I would say it's Claudio Bravo making the collision on or with John Stones and not the opposite, and that's why I say it's mostly Bravo's fault.
If Bravo doesn't come, does Stones just head that clear?
I think so, because there's, as far as I remember, there's really not that many United players in the area, and certainly not any United players putting him under pressure. So I think at worst he flicks it out for a corner, but I think more likely is he heads it pretty clear, and then City can step.
Instead, Zlatan does that really beautiful side volley. Side volley, sorry.
Slide volley works, because it was a weird, gets his foot up and gets his foot down, but doesn't really extend his foot at all. Yeah. It's just like a weird, chop motion, and then somehow it goes perfectly into the near post.
And if any Man City fans were feeling bad about Bravo instead of Hart, Hart very helpfully had a similar flap for Torino later that day. So all was good.
Sure did. And so all was good for Man City heading into the halftime break. And then they come back out. Jose Mourinho makes 2 substitutions. And I think those changes, as well as the kind of tactical shift that goes along with them, definitely made it a much more even game in the second half.
So don't spoil it for me. I believe it's Herrera comes on and Rashford comes on. Mkhitaryan goes off and Lingard goes off. And United's shape changes to basically a 4-1-4-1.
Yep.
So Herrera comes deep. It's all coming back to me now. Herrera essentially sits as a proper defensive midfielder and is just tasked with staying there. And then Fellaini and Pogba have much more license to sort of go forward. And don't Manchester United really start pressing Man City in a way they didn't in the first half, they did in the second half. Made this game super exciting.
Yeah, because and basically what I saw was... you'd still have Zlatan pressing or kind of doing that cut-off so that City couldn't just pass it back through the back four. Then you'd have another player come in.
He's not brilliant at that.
I think he did okay. I think he didn't have much help in that first half, so I think he did what he could. But it definitely felt like one of those games, and we've seen... The one that comes most readily to mind for me is Ronaldo doing it, where he... sprints from one guy, sprints to another, and thinks he's put them all under pressure, and then they just pass it back the way they came, and he turns around and realizes that he's the only one doing it.
Yeah.
It felt a little bit like that with Zlatan, and then I feel like he kind of stopped doing it for that reason.
But do you think there's a chance that he hasn't had to do this for 2 or 3 years? So he's not quite used to being a pressing forward. He's more a waiting around for the ball to get to me kind of forward.
Maybe. And I don't think he is a pressing forward.
Yeah.
And I think it was more he was there to cut off... I think in the second half he was used to cut off passes, not necessarily to really harass people. Yeah, because the times that he does harass people, he gets a yellow card for clipping Otamendi.
Yes, he does.
So that doesn't quite work. But I think basically he was responsible for cutting off options. I think then you had that first wave of attackers who kind of then put that slow pressure on. Well, the quick pressure, but you know what I mean. That they came in then and shut off options.
Yep.
And then what I saw was under Herrera, kind of man-marking Kevin De Bruyne, but kind of then being the one to sprint in and close the space, knowing that City were going to try to do that through pass through the middle.
And they did a good job of forcing City back, right?
Yep.
So instead of that thing where Otamendi could dribble forward, or instead of them just zipping the passes around midfield and getting forward, I noticed City were keeping possession, but slowly being forced backwards.
Right.
And in around about the 55th minute or so, that results in Claudio Bravo having that one big... It's Herrera puts the pressure on, right?
Yep.
He cuts to try and evade Herrera in the 6-yard box, overcuts, because he's not Kevin De Bruyne. It's a very bad Kevin De Bruyne impression. And sets up essentially a 50-50 ball with Wayne Rooney.
Yep.
Right? And I'm trying to be very careful about how to describe this next part. They both slide in for the ball. Claudio Bravo wins the ball, which pops loose. Wayne Rooney is injured in the collision because Bravo did have his foot up and did go very aggressively.
Right.
The debate is, was he reckless? Was it a foul on Rooney? Or was it two people going for the ball and one of them being better at tackling than the other? Which is what Lee Dixon basically said on the commentary.
I think what Lee Dixon was getting at is that he likes the old days of physical challenges are fine. Yeah. They're part of the game. So I wouldn't go so far, and I don't think this is my bias, but maybe it is. I wouldn't go so far as to say that Claudio Bravo was a better tackler. I think it's that he's coming in straight through the ball. Yeah. And Wayne Rooney, if you watch it, it looks like he's trying to slide in and square it to Under Herrera, who's tracking that run still.
Yeah, his slide is at an angle, isn't it? Yeah.
Right. And so, to answer your question, yeah, I think it was reckless. I think it was high, and that he kind of leads with his studs is a problem. But as I said to you before we started recording, if he had called the penalty, I would have been like, yeah, that's a good call. And that he didn't call the penalty, at least at the time, I was like, yeah, that makes sense too.
Oh,
like,
you just accepted it at the time?
I wasn't too upset about it one way or the other.
Were there other United fans there?
Yeah, they were real mad.
They weren't as accepting as you.
Yeah. And I've tried to figure out why I think, because on the replay, when you watch it from a couple different angles, it definitely looks bad. It looks like, yes, he gets the ball, but it's one of those, the guy gets the ball and then crushes the player, and then he's like, no, but I got the ball. And it's like, yeah, you also ruined that guy to do so. And I think there is contact. I think maybe the reason why Mark Clattenburg decided not to give it as a foul is because it doesn't come about. It's not like a through ball that Rooney's running onto and there's a collision. It's not that United have passed it around and then Claudio Bravo's come out and taken out Wayne Rooney.
It's not a situation that happens very often.
Yeah, and so I think it's a weird, like, tie goes to the runner because the runner made the mistake sort of situation. Right. And so it was more like, oh, it's a keeper scrambling and maybe he gets a little bit a benefit of the doubt because he's trying to make up for it, and so you have to anticipate that he's going to be coming in wildly, is maybe the thinking of Mark Clattenburg. I don't know. But I guess I would just say, like, yeah, I think it's reckless, and it probably should have been a foul, but I also think, and so I apologize for rambling, but this is basically my entire thought. I also think it's one of those weird situations, and again, I don't necessarily have a problem with it, that if that's outside the box, it's a foul. But since it's inside the box, given the situation as it was, I think, again, that's why Clattenburg doesn't want to give the penalty.
One thing occurred to me is, why didn't Bravo go down with his hands? You know what I mean?
I don't know.
Because if he hadn't got there in time, it's kind of an easy thing for United to score,
Oh, because it would have been an indirect kick. That's why. Because he can't do that. It's a pass back to him.
Of course.
And then he cuts it back, so then he's dribbling. You can't just pick the ball up.
You've answered the question for me. He had to use his feet. So it wasn't just he was just committed to using his feet no matter what.
Yeah.
It's that he couldn't use his hands at all.
Yep, that's why.
That's really interesting.
There we are. We got to it. We figured it out eventually.
So I know we touched on this earlier, but obviously Bravo had the kind of mistake for the goal. Could have given away that penalty kick, right? That could have been the thing that made it 2-2, maybe sent them down to 10 men. Could have been a disaster from there on out. I still think I totally now understand the Guardiola insistence on getting Claudio Bravo.
Oh, did you hear his post-match comments?
No.
He said it was like the greatest goalkeeping performance he's ever seen.
Well, that's not true.
Yeah, it's definitely him just bigging up his player. But no, I mean, it makes absolute sense now, right?
Because it allows them to play the way they want to play, right? How many times was he just outside of the box? And we talked earlier about how when Joe Hart would have just kicked long, instead Bravo like plays square to Kolarov, and that is such a huge part of their game. Because you look at it now and you understand that it's pass the ball all the way back to him, but that's fine because he's going to turn and play it the other way, and you can slowly build from there. And it's not just like we're under pressure, pass it back, he boots it long, eventually we'll win the ball back. And so it allows City to keep possession and maintain their sort of tactical plan, and it worked. I thought of it as like maybe they could have taught Joe Hart to do that. I think seeing Claudio Bravo do it made me realise that teaching Joe Hart to do it would be like teaching a dog to use a typewriter. You know what I mean? Like you could pound the keys, but it would not be very effective, and you wouldn't want to read what he wrote.
Yeah, I'm going to keep going with the metaphors because I'm going to say it's like breaking up with a person and then kind of doubting whether or not it was the right decision, and then you just like hear them say something or see them, and you're like, no, it was the right decision. And I like to think that that's what happened because didn't Hart like immediately put the ball out of bounds for England, like on his first clearance?
Yeah,
and so I just like to think that Guardiola was watching that game and sort of just nodded to himself, like, yes, I was correct.
It's okay. Adam Lallana made it all okay.
Yeah, indeed.
Another thing I want to talk about is what if that had been given as a penalty? What if it was 2-2 or maybe more? But let's just say it was 2-2, the final score. Are we still talking about Guardiola being a genius and out-coaching Mourinho?
No, because I think it becomes Guardiola was a genius in the first half, and then Mourinho becomes the genius in the second.
So they share the genius
because it's the individual player adjustments, it's the tactical adjustments, it's putting them under pressure, and the fact that it was clearly told to United players, conveyed to them in that locker room, you put them under pressure, this is the way you do it, these people are responsible for doing it. One of those people is a second half sub who puts Claudio Bravo under pressure and kind of forces that mistake.
Okay.
So I think then it becomes Mourinho is equally smart.
So what are the chances that the new Manchester United setup is Ander Herrera at defensive midfield and Pogba and Fellaini ahead of him?
Probably not very good.
Why not?
Is my guess.
You think we'll go back to just those two defensive midfielders?
I think so.
I didn't mention this before, I loved watching Pogba play. I forgot what a joy he is.
Yep.
His close control and his ability to like manipulate the ball in tight spaces, flick it around someone, and then use his size and strength to then make sure that he knocks them out of the way as well. It's kind of a perfect combination of attributes to watch someone be really exciting under pressure.
Yeah, he's pretty good. He's pretty good, that Pogba guy. I think he's worth some money. I could be wrong. I think I wouldn't mind seeing that as a United fan, but I think the more likely player who came in and had an impact and might have secured a starting spot is Marcus Rashford.
Okay.
Because he did some stuff.
He did, right?
Yeah.
It's really exciting to watch.
Yeah, and he kind of did everything that both Lingard and Mkhitaryan didn't do.
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of confidence on the ball, confidence in his passing, confidence in when to shoot, and just looking like a much more capable player, certainly than Jesse Lingard.
So we recorded this late Sunday night, right, early Monday morning. Before we started recording, I saw a headline, Rashford to start against Feyenoord. So I assume Man United have a Europa League game coming up this week. I'm sorry, buddy. It looks like Rashford has forced his way into the starting lineup for that game.
See, this is where I know that I've been doing the show entirely too long with you, because I refuse to complain about that. Because I know that your response will be like, well, you could be in the Championship. Because that's usually your retort.
If Wolves were in the Europa League, I'd be running around doing a dance. Instead, we're conceding 94th minute equalisers.
I was following that game on Twitter, and I held off texting you, because I was like, it looks like your boys are going to get it done. And then I deleted that text, because I was like, they're going to concede, and then he's going to be real mad at me.
So you technically did jinx it.
Maybe I did. Actually, I might not have even written. I might have written like looks and then deleted it, because even that I felt like maybe was too much, and sure enough, it was. So I apologize.
All right, Taylor, we have a sponsor for today's show. That sponsor is Mack Weldon, the returning champion of menswear apparel. Mack Weldon is better than what you're wearing right now.
They have shirts, underwear, socks, and hoodies getting into that season where maybe hoodies will become appropriate, although it's still a sweltering, 95, 100 degrees when we were playing soccer today.
It was.
But eventually hoodies will be necessary, and if they become necessary for you, then Mack Weldon can hook it up.
So you go to mackweldon.com, you can take a look at their hoodies. Today we have the Mack Weldon Man of the Match in the Manchester Derby, because we like alliteration.
Yes.
So, Taylor, my Mack Weldon Man of the Match in the Manchester Derby.
Marby?
The Marby, yeah. Kevin De Bruyne.
Yep.
This was peak Kevin De Bruyne. He may never play this well again.
Correct.
He was so good at finding where the space was and exploiting it. I think in the preview I'd picked Nolito to be the exploiter of space. Nolito had a fine game on the left.
I forgot how mad you were that you didn't pick Kevin De Bruyne to score.
Because I nearly did, right? We talked about it beforehand, and I was like, all right, I'm going to go Nolito instead. Yeah, absolutely should have gone De Bruyne. But the mix of intelligence in terms of positioning and movement and how to take advantage of people, confidence, right? Even, the Iheanacho goal, the way the cut is amazing, but that shot from that angle to bend it and hit the post, that would have been an incredible goal all on its own. Yeah. So the intelligence, the confidence, and the speed of play. He looked like he was on. I know some people listen to podcasts a little quickly, like they do the 1.5 speed. He looked like he was at 1.5 and everyone was at ×1.
Here's what I found most interesting about Kevin De Bruyne's performance. He didn't turn pink. That was we were talking about that at the bar where we were watching it. That he's always turns pink by the end of the game. Right. He stayed the kind of pale beigeish color.
That's true.
That I think is a sign that he was confident and composed.
Also, the weather in Manchester does not lend itself to heating you up.
I kind of always forget that not on the same latitudinal line, I think. And so whenever I see Pep Guardiola in a three-piece suit while I'm sweating in shorts and a T-shirt, I'm like, how do you do that?
Yeah. If you draw a line from Richmond, Virginia to, say, Manchester or Birmingham, I normally do it, it's way far north.
Yeah, there we are.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to say that, it's Kevin De Bruyne is probably the man of the match. Maybe you can make an argument for David Silva.
It's the Mack Weldon Manchester Derby man of the match.
Man of the match? Yes, got it. Manchester Marby, man of the match. There it is. Yes, I think it is Kevin De Bruyne. Maybe a case could be made for David Silva, but I'm instead going to cheat and go for the man who put Kevin De Bruyne in the position to win, and that's Pep Guardiola.
And put David Silva in that sort of weird defensive midfield role where he could be responsible for keeping possession, did a really good job of it.
And the thing that I think is most telling about what Pep Guardiola did that makes him such a good manager is after the game, I think you spotted this quote from Jose Mourinho about how we didn't want to play it into the... What was the terminology?
I told the players not to play any first station balls, but they did it 20 times. He said it was as if they were trying to do all the things I told them not to do.
And neither one of us had any idea what that meant. So a quick Google search revealed that basically that's when the midfield drops it back to the defense.
Yeah.
So instead of going forward with the ball.
So it's like you go back to first station, I guess, because defense is first station. I'd never heard that terminology before.
And I think that points to their game plan being that you're not supposed to go backwards with the ball. As soon as you get the ball, if you're a midfielder, you're getting it wide, you're getting it forward. And what that points to is that they were banking on City coming inside, flooding the midfield with numbers, and then leaving the flanks exposed.
Yeah, we'll hit Mkhitaryan and Lingard out wide, right?
And so then that Guardiola knew that was going to be the tactic and adjusted accordingly, but then forced Manchester United into doing the exact thing that they had been instructed not to do because that was all that they had on. It points to how right Jose Mourinho got his tactics.
You mean Pep Guardiola?
That's what I meant. The opposite of Jose Mourinho. And then also, I think, because it was another one of those interesting games, and I think the one that comes to mind most readily is Champions League last season, where it was Guardiola and Diego Simeone, where we kept seeing their changes that would like counter each other out, and they were very intentional tactical adjustments.
Yeah.
And again, that happened where
second half, right?
He Guardiola pulls off Iheanacho because he's realized Iheanacho is maybe giving the ball away a little bit, maybe dribbling too much, but also United are putting them under pressure. He wants more kind of fluidity in the attack, and he brings on Leroy Sané. That's a really smart substitution.
Well, no, actually, I think he brought on Fernando.
Yes, you're right. Excuse me.
For Iheanacho.
And then
Leroy Sané came on to just give some relief to Raheem Sterling.
Exactly, because then I think it's that, but it's also because then United are really pressing for that second goal, and if you get the ball to Leroy Sané, he can sprint up the field in 2 seconds,
right?
And then United are going to be in trouble. And I also think that maybe Manchester United didn't know who Leroy Sané was, because there was so often where it was just sort of stand off him, and they're like, guys, do you know how fast? Oh, he's around you. Like, that kept happening. So I just think those substitutions, even though I can't remember them in order, were very intelligent as well.
Jay Worley tweeted, because he's scouting Leroy Sané for the TSS Scouting Network, he tweeted, finally Sané got his debut.
Yes. I also enjoyed the guys I was watching with saying, who is that again? And I said, Leroy Sané. And they said, oh, where is he from? And I said, Germany. And they were all silent for a second. And I was like, oh, does Leroy Sané not sound German to you? Because no, Leroy Sané does not sound German at all.
It's kind of cool, right? TSS Scouting Network puts us ahead of the game.
There we are.
Guys like Leroy Sané.
So those are them. Those are Mack Weldon, man of the match for the Manchester Marby.
That is a mouthful.
Yeah.
So thank you to Mack Weldon for sponsoring today's episode. If you would like to support the show and support Mack Weldon, you can go to mackweldon.com, mackweldon.com. And you can use the coupon code TSS to get 20% off anything in the Mack Weldon store.
Yes, sir. We will put a link in the show notes, and thank you to Mack Weldon for continuing to sponsor the Total Soccer Show.
Up next, Taylor.
Yes, sir. Kevin
De Bruyne and Iheanacho were not the only people scoring this weekend. There were also a goal in the English Championship for DeAndre Yedlin.
Yep.
In Germany, in the Bundesliga, for Bobby Wood. Also in the Bundesliga, for Aaron Johansson.
Yeah.
And there was an appearance by Landon Donovan.
Yes.
All right. So we've got to talk some men's.
Those are all very varying things, but sure.
This segment, I'm calling it U.S. men's national team abroad and also in Los Angeles. Let's start with DeAndre
I don't think that segment's going to catch on, but we'll see.
Let's start with DeAndre Yedlin's goal. He scored the second goal for Newcastle in a 2-0 win over Derby. It was the 94th/95th minute.
And it was a Yedlin goal.
It was a Yedlin goal. Jack Lavelle called it the most Yedlin-y goal possible.
Yeah, that's better.
So here's what happens. Essentially, it's a corner kick to Newcastle. They're 1-0 up in the 94th minute. And if you've seen this goal and you're thinking, how on earth has this combination of events happened when you see the goal? Because it's essentially Yedlin bundles it into the keeper and bounces off him and goes in, right? So Derby are losing. It's 1-0. It's 94th minute. Newcastle take a short corner. I think they think that Newcastle are going to hold it in the corner, right? So Derby players are crowded around it because you've got to get the ball back. You've got to get the ball back. You're 1-0 down, time's running out. Instead, John Joe Shelvey picks his head up, goes cross-field, finds... Oh, I've forgotten his name. Is it Perez? Yeah.
Ayoze Perez, yep.
Finds Ayoze Perez, who's just like kind of standing in the box, ready to go. Perez one-times it into the path of an onrushing Yedlin, who arrives with the Derby keeper, whose name I don't know, sorry, and they basically collide at the same time.
Yep.
But Yedlin, his pace gets in there just quickly enough, just first enough, to make it bounce around and go in.
Yeah, exactly. I like that you avoided saying, and then he like slots it home or passes it home, because I'm not sure he knows that he puts it into the net until he celebrates.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and does he celebrate?
Yeah, he does. There's some dancing. You should watch. That said, the more I think about this, the more I wonder if this is actually a design play.
Really?
Only because DeAndre Yedlin is not a very tall player, and he's not usually one that I think of as being a player you want attacking a corner kick.
Right.
And especially if you're nursing that 1-0 lead late in the game, throwing your defenders forward doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me.
He was playing right wing.
Okay, so maybe that makes more sense because then he's streaking in from the middle of the field. So then maybe we have more of an explanation.
I think maybe got a phone call from Jurgen Klinsmann and said, "Why are you playing this kid right back? This kid."
I know that I've been playing him right back, but now he should be a right winger. Yeah, okay. So there we go. So then that makes more sense, and then maybe it does go back to the just good awareness from Jonjo Shelvey and Jose Perez and good opportunism from DeAndre Yedlin.
And maybe a reminder of how Newcastle have far too many Premier League players playing in the Championship.
And DeAndre Yedlin.
If this was like a local amateur league, people would be saying, this is not fair. You guys should not be in this division.
Yeah. It does feel like that, doesn't it?
Do you really think it's a design play, though? Because I feel like it's really risky. In the final 30 seconds and you're winning 1-0, to cross the ball. Like, that could have been a terrible ball from Jonjo Shelvey because it could have been cleared and then Derby are away and then they concede a 94th minute equaliser, which only Wolves did this weekend. But Newcastle could as well.
Yeah. I think it would have worked out fine. It would have been okay.
It certainly did work out.
Yeah.
All right. Bobby Wood. We saw Bobby Wood score for Hamburg.
It was a weekend of Americans scoring, but it was sort of like, oh, he scored. Yeah, he scored. like it was exciting, and then like that Yedlin goal. It's great. He gets his name on the score sheet. Scores his first goal for Newcastle. But again, I'm not sure. Obviously, makes a deliberate run, but I'm not sure he knew that he was the one who scored.
Yeah.
Like it very well could have thought he forced an own goal. And then both Aaron Johansson scores the penalty, and then Bobby Wood's goal. Like you can sort of see him be confused even as he scores it.
Right, yeah. So here's what happens. A teammate puts Bobby Wood through because the opposition, who they playing? Leverkusen? Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Leverkusen left back, sorry, I don't know who it is, was like 10 yards behind the rest of the defence.
Yeah, it wasn't great.
It's a good lesson in how an offside trap should not work.
It's not a defensive masterclass.
So Bobby Wood runs through. He's like one-on-one with the keeper. Keeper's running out. Not one-on-one because he hasn't got the ball yet, has he? He's chasing the ball. The keeper's running out to try and get there first. The keeper just slides straight through and misses the ball. And all Wood has to do is gently hurdle him, and then he just runs in and scores.
I feel like Leno maybe knew that like Claudio Bravo had gotten away with one. He's like, there's no way two keepers are getting away with this in the same weekend. I got to pull up. So yeah, he kind of, I think, backs his pace. Yeah. And maybe he just had that moment we've all had playing soccer where it's like, I got this. Ooh, I am not as fast as I thought I was. This is going to be a problem.
It was the worst miss since Leno tried that 9 o'clock show on NBC.
That's just brilliant. Other than the fact that it was 10 o'clock. But otherwise, you're fine. But yeah, it was pretty bad. And then it basically falls to Bobby Wood. And again, I will say, he is a professional soccer player, so you expect him to score. But, it's a good 20, 25 yards out.
Yeah.
He's got to slot it home into an empty net. And I think it was Eric Winalda doing the color commentary. And Eric Winalda wanted him to not even watch the ball go in. Like, he wanted him to just already be celebrating, because that's how you look cool.
Do you think... So, Wood's American, right? It's from Hawaii. Do you think he played some football growing up? Like, throw ball football?
Oh, I was very confused.
Because of the hurdle. I can see him, like, maybe a kick returner who had to hurdle someone on his way to the end zone.
Yes, it's possible.
Are all the phrases I'm using correct?
So far, I think. I don't know. I zoned out for a second trying to remember what Hawaii's mascot is because I'm pretty sure it's like the fighting rainbows. But I'm going to say, yeah, why not? He probably threw a ball around.
All right, I'm going to quit while I'm neither ahead nor behind.
There we are.
So we talked about Aaron Johansson, right?
Are they the Rainbow Warriors? It's something rainbow, I'm pretty sure, is the University of Hawaii.
Someone's tweeting us furiously right now.
Almost certainly.
So, yeah, Johansson scored for Werder Bremen, but unfortunately they lost. Bobby Wood's team also lost. Mm-hmm. The lesson here is if Americans score for you this past weekend in the Bundesliga, your team loses.
Yes, but if Americans sub on for you with 7 minutes to go in the game, your team wins, albeit while conceding a goal while that player's on the field.
Yeah, so Landon Donovan, the big return that we talked about, played the final 7 minutes of LA Galaxy's 4-2 win over Orlando City in LA.
Yes.
It was 4-1 when Donovan came on.
It was.
Let's get straight to this, right?
Yep.
Donovan is kind of not doing any of the right things on Orlando's goal, scored by Dane Breckenshire.
Yes. Yeah, so it's Donovan. It comes down LA's left side, Orlando on the right. And I think Donovan basically just gets sucked inside, then realizes he has to go close down his man, and then because he closes, he leaves space, and that's where Dane Breckenshire runs through, collects the rebound, and scores.
I think it was a reminder of how professional soccer, even if you are the greatest US player of all time, is very hard to get back into.
Yes.
Yeah, and I'm sure he's been training. He looked in fine fittle. But it is a really tough thing to get back up to speed.
Yeah.
Even in that 7-minute cameo, you could see he was a little like, Oh, he looked very Mkhitaryan-ish. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I mean, but yeah, because even if you've been training and keeping to full fitness, it's just a different animal, and maybe that's a good example of why you hear Jurgen Klinsmann say, like, we want our players playing consistently with the first team,
not retiring for 2 years.
Yes, yeah, or just like sitting on the bench and then coming in for little cameos.
Yeah.
It's like you want them playing at their highest level as consistently as possible.
Yep.
Otherwise, maybe you get a little rusty.
Anything else to say on Donovan?
Just, it's nice to see him back.
It is.
He looked about the same.
It was kind of exciting.
He's wearing all black boots, which is something you know that I'm fond of.
Yes, you are. Well, I'm sure Donovan will be back to his old form soon enough.
I would venture to guess he will.
So, Wood scored, Johansson scored, the teams didn't win.
Breckin Shea scored, though. I said collected. I should just say he volleys at one time, and it's a very pretty goal.
Cutting in from the right with his left foot.
And yet not cutting his hair.
Yeah, cut that hair.
Yeah.
Cut that hair. Christian Pulisic on the bench for Borussia Dortmund did not feature as Dortmund lost 1-0 to Leipzig. Lawn Ball Sports Leipzig.
Where Terrence Boyd also did not feature. Nor did Emerson Hyman for Bournemouth, nor did Brad Guzan, who was on the bench for Middlesbrough.
Julian Green was on the bench for Bayern. Didn't see the field.
John Brooks did, though, so there's that.
I thought he had a bad back.
So did the U.S. Soccer Federation, but John Brooks started.
Do we question this?
No, I don't think so.
There's a couple of weeks between games, right?
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah, and it might even, like, for all we know, it might even have been a conversation between U.S. Soccer and Hertha Berlin, where they're sort of like, well, maybe we don't want them to travel all the way to the U.S. and then be on, like, 4 different plane flights, and do you really need him? And Klinsmann thought, I can experiment with a back line. We'll be fine.
6 foot plus gentleman that John Brooks is with a bad back, many flights.
Yeah, because that's
right?
what Germany to Florida, Florida to St. Vincent back to Florida, and then Florida back to Germany. That's a decent hike.
It sure is.
Yes, and especially knowing what we now know about St. Vincent customs and airport control, that Grant Wall and Jeff Carlisle were stranded for almost a full day. I think. Yeah, it could have been a disaster for John Brooks.
Final segment on today's show, Taylor. The Total Soccer Show, Scouting Network. Reports are pouring in.
They sure are. And we have 5 today.
Yes,
Mr.
we
Grove.
do. If you are not familiar with TSS and the Scouting Network, these are subscribers to the Total Soccer Show. We've given our subscribers young players to keep an eye on. They file reports with us. So we keep track of all the best young players on planet Earth. I'm getting very confident about the scope of the TSS network here.
I think the larger it gets, the more confident you can be that we've got all the good players in there.
Yeah.
Yep. And up first, we've got Jonathan Lecco, scouted by Eric Radist. Eric says, the 17-year-old Congolese-born striker is a regular member of the West Brom matchday squad and is getting some minutes as a substitute. However, Tony Pulis' defensive-oriented system may limit his development, so a possible regime change could benefit the youngster.
Yeah, because Pulis goes one striker. It's DeAndre Yedlin, saviour. Solomon Rondon.
Yep. And Eric does note that it seems like Lecco has basically supplanted Saito Berahino as like the next option off the bench.
He's on his way out, right?
Yes, definitely so.
I heard, I can't remember the details, but there's some complicated transfer deal involving Berahino.
Yes.
Are we allowed to talk about this?
Yeah, I mean, it was basically, I forget what podcast it was, but they were talking to a super agent on transfer deadline day.
Okay.
And he was being very vague about this weird situation where there's a player who wants to leave, but the club won't let him leave, but he can go on a free to another club, and then that club will likely sell him back to another club where his agent has connections. And the pundits were basically like, is it Saito Berahino? And are you talking about Wolves? So they kind of sniffed it out, and that was where I was thinking maybe he ends up at Wolves next season.
How did I forget it was Wolves?
Yep.
I wasn't even sure yet. Wow, okay.
Oh, that's why I thought you brought it up in the first place.
No, I'd forgotten that it was Wolves. I just knew that it was a weird deal.
Yes, but it was just great to hear him think he was being all coy.
Yeah.
And then the first guy was like, is it Berahino you're talking about? And he's like, well, I can't talk in specifics, so I can't say anything about that. And then the next question was, I'm certain it's Wolves you're talking about. So
this makes me remember. Listeners of the last few weeks will know that I've been weirded out by the George Mendes connection and how Wolves are very agent-driven. Maybe this is the weirdly good side of it, where you're the sneaky ones who are getting in on these weird deals to get good players.
There you go.
All right. Oh, worth noting, you said Congolese-born. Jonathan Lecco, England Youth International.
That's why I changed it from, I believe when Eric first sent the scouting report, he wrote it as the Congo striker, but then included the fact that he had played for England at U21 level. So
all right.
I cleaned it up a little bit. Next report, Mr. Grove?
It's from Brian Watley. Brian Watley is scouting Sergio Diaz. Diaz? Let's go Diaz.
He's Paraguayan, so I'd say Diaz.
All right.
And is playing for Real Madrid, so I'd definitely say Diaz.
The Paraguayan has scored 3 goals in 4 games for Real Madrid.
Castilla. Excuse me, I forgot to include Castilla in that
report. For Real Madrid Castilla, that's the Real Madrid B team,
Yep.
basically, right? The latest of which was a 40-yard lob of the keeper from near midfield. Do we have video of this?
We do. It was sent to us.
If I go in the email, will I find video of this?
You would.
I
It's decent. It's decent. Up next, Jennifer Ahern, scouting Jairo Riedewald, is how we're going to pronounce that one. Jennifer emailed us on Jairo's 20th birthday with news that the Ajax manager, the new Ajax manager, Peter Bosz, sees the youngster as one of the team's strongest options at the number 6 spot, which is a big deal given that I believe they signed a number 6 on deadline day. So the fact that they're favoring Jairo is probably a good thing for the future of his career.
All right. And Ruud, let us know if we got the pronunciation correct.
Yes.
We had a Facebook message from Ruud letting us know about some Dutch pronunciation. It's Donny van Beek.
Okay.
All right. I think I got that one right too.
You think?
I think. I'm not confident. Next up, Taylor Mukaria is scouting Jeremy Ebobisse. Taylor says, American, right? Jeremy Ebobisse, American. Jeremy marked his first career pro start by scoring for the Charleston Battery, his first pro goal. Taylor thinks Ebobisse will go high in the draft, possibly even first to Atlanta United, Charleston's USL affiliate.
Right, so then Taylor was pointing out that it makes sense because Atlanta are probably talking to Charleston and figuring out how good is he? Is he good at this? What's her strengths here? So then they can maybe make that decision if they want to keep him around.
And next Saturday, Charleston Battery are coming to Richmond. We'll be doing the commentary, so we'll get to watch Jeremy Ebobisse, maybe.
Yeah, I'm actually very excited for that game because you've got Ebobisse, you've got
Andrew Carlton,
and then is it Nabil Hackshaw, who we were surprised didn't start against the Kickers last time, and it was because he was on international duty with Trinidad and Tobago. Yep. So a few players to be excited about. Or scared of if you're a Richmond fan.
If we're supporting Richmond. Richmond need, I think, to win out and then to get a couple of results go their way so they get to host a home playoff game. If they don't, then no more home playoff games.
then we are done talking to microphones.
And no more home playoff games means less money for us because we only get paid when we do the home playoff games.
Come on, home playoff games. Final scouting report, Daryl Grove.
Is from Juan Carlos Salas, which means it must be about Mallory Pugh.
Warning here, because you haven't read this one yet, it ends in a question that you're going to have to answer. So go ahead.
Okay, Juan Carlos says, Mallory Pugh is currently training with the US Women's National Team under-20s, but has also been named to the 21-player roster for the US Women's National Team's upcoming friendlies. According to US Soccer, quote, Mallory Pugh will not be with the team in Columbus, but will join them in Atlanta as she is currently training with the U20s in LA. Juan Carlos asks if this makes sense / if we think it's worth flying cross-country for a friendly.
I'm going to go ahead and insert myself to say that given the furrow brow that I just saw, crease your face, I'm going to say you don't think it makes that much sense.
I was trying to Indiana Jones style do the plane, track it across the country.
How'd that work out?
I got there eventually. Maybe she needs air miles?
That could be. Bill Burr wouldn't approve, but maybe she's trying to get those miles.
Oh, yeah, we should tell listeners, before recording tonight's show, we went to see Bill Burr do stand-up.
We sure did.
Yeah. It was mostly good?
Yeah, it was mostly good. That's my review of his new set. And I love me some Bill Burr. Yeah. Yes, I think it's a little strange. I do, especially given that it's a 21-player roster and it's a friendly. It's 2 friendlies. I think it's strange to pull her out of U20 camp because that's competing for, qualifying for the U20 World Cup or in preparation for the U20 World Cup?
It's one or the other. It's coming in October/November is the U20 Women's National Team World Cup. And it seems like we're going to do a Serbia and select our best players to go there. I think if the US had done better in the Olympics, Mallory Pugh wouldn't be called in for these friendlies.
That makes a whole lot of sense.
I think there's the US going out in the quarterfinals still feels weird to say.
Yeah.
The whole Hope Solo drama. I meant to say thank you to CJ Francis for her email about that. I really appreciated her thoughts on Hope Solo. I think if that team was all set and looking good, you wouldn't need... she's one of the better players on the team, right? So maybe part of the rebuilding is we've got to get Mallory in here to run at some people.
It's also, maybe it's a reminder that, look at all these young people who are very, very good.
Yeah.
Watch us score goals. Lots and lots of goals.
I think it might be to lift the crowd, maybe to get people through the door.
So I guess it makes sense in that regard, but I would say
no.
I don't think it's worth it.
Yeah.
Especially not because you're risking pulling her out of camp, putting her on a plane. It's not the most fun.
You got to choose, right? You got to choose who she's with.
I could also be completely wrong, and maybe they charter jets, but I feel like maybe she's flying coach too.
Yeah, or at least maybe premium economy.
Yeah, let's hope so. Let's hope so.
All right, those are all the scouting reports for today. Thank you to everybody who sent one. Thank you to everybody who subscribes to TSS. You are what keeps the show going. A note, though. It's September, which means a lot of people's cards expire and get replaced. So we have been finding a few subscriptions have lapsed. You will have got an email from PayPal about it, because if your card goes through PayPal, if your card expires and the bank sends you a new one, PayPal doesn't automatically update. So if you recently received a new debit card and you would like, or credit card, and you would like to keep supporting TSS, please go into PayPal and update your card information.
Yes, because doing so is what allows us to keep the show going, keep it 5 days a week, allow us to pay our cable bill so we can DVR these games and watch them and then have hopefully interesting things to say, and potentially allows us to buy a window unit. Because the central air in this building is not working, and it is hot.
Or maybe we move to a new building with better air.
Mayhaps.
In the future, maybe.
Yes. Landlords, if you're listening, get on it.
All right, Taylor Rockwell, thank you for taking the time to talk to me today.
My pleasure, buddy, and thank you for doing the same.
Listeners, thank you for listening. We will be back on maybe Tuesday with some Champions League either reviews or previews. We haven't quite decided what we're doing yet, but there will be Champions League coverage in our futures.
Indeed.
On behalf of Taylor and me, it is goodbye from us, and we'll talk to you soon.